tonight we are here to celebrate Angela, and also this talk happens to be perfectly timed to coincide with Angela's next book, which is publishing in a couple of weeks. So, Wilding. It's a celebration of the publication of the newly illustrated edition of Isabella Tree's best-selling book Wilding, which is illustrated by Angela. The Newham Bookshop are here in the back of the hall selling copies of the book for anyone who would like to get them in person afterwards, and I'm sure Angela will be happy to sign a couple of copies if you would like that. So please do go and support them. And if for anyone online, we would encourage you, if you would like to get a copy of the book, to please support your independent bookshops or go to bookshop.org where you can find this book for sale as well. And I would just like to give you a sneak preview of a few spreads from this fantastic book. So for anyone online, they can see this rather than looking at in-person copies. So the Wilding book really highlights the important work that Isabella Tree and Charlie Burrell are doing at Knepp in West Sussex. Their story is absolutely incredible journey of bringing wildlife back. I heartily recommend visiting if you haven't seen for yourself the impact of what they have achieved in the last 25 years. They've made successful reintroductions of white storks and beavers to their land, as well as encouraged the return and growth of many rare species, ranging from the purple emperor butterfly, the large tortoiseshell butterfly, which is thought to be extinct in the UK for over half a century, to the nightingale, turtle dove, cuckoo, and many more. You go there and you're just surrounded by birdsong. It is an absolutely magical place. I visited last year and felt bereft when I came home because it was too quiet. So with everything going on in the world at the moment, the story of Knepp and this incredible book that it talks about is one that just gives me huge hope for the future. And it is an absolutely incredible, magical story, and I think will help change the world. And hopefully people will listen to Isabella and through this book, what they're trying to achieve. So tonight's talk will last approximately 60 minutes, and there'll be time for questions afterwards. And now, I'm nearly stopped talking, you'll be glad to know. We are here today to hear from the fantastic Angela Harding. Angela is an author, printmaker, and illustrator who lives in the village of Wing in Rutland. She is the author and illustrator of A Year Unfolding, A Printmaker's View, and Wildlight, A Printmaker's Day and Night. Angela has also created covers for many best-selling books, some of which you can see here, including The Salt Path and The Wild Silence by Raina Wynn, October by Katia Ballen, which was the winner of the Yoto Carnegie Medal 2022, among many others. Angela's iconic linocut artwork celebrates and shines a spotlight on the diversity and beauty of the natural world around us and makes us to stop and pause and look more closely at the wonder as it holds. So, without further ado, I would like to hand over to Angela. Thank you all very much.
Hopefully you can hear me and it's not too horrible. Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much, Becky, for the introduction. And where to start? Can I have one of my slides? Slide number 1.
Sorry.
Did you want? Oh, you wanted me to do it, didn't you? I'm sorry. Oh yeah. This is home. Oops. Oh, so what do I do?
Just press that one.
Press that one.
For forward. Okay. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So this is my. I'm very lucky that I've not only got, I started with Studio 1, which you can't quite see. It's behind Studio 2. It's like Thunderbirds, really. They've multiplied. My husband is a retired carpenter, so he's actually built these. And the black one is a sort of homage to Derek Jarman, if you know Derek Jarman. So I've actually just moved out of, sadly, Studio Thunderbirds 2 to, oh no, not that one. Is the new one on there?
It's coming, yeah.
Oh, well, it'll come in a bit. But this is where I started. And to go right back to this, how do you make a living as an illustrator? Anybody who's here, it's not the easiest of jobs to choose, really. But I actually think of my career in 2 halves. I think of it as pre-internet and post-internet, with a sort of gap in the middle, which was sort of breeding and other things. Part of the breeding bit, sort of post non-internet, meant that I lost one husband. It didn't die. I divorced him, or we divorced each other. very amicably. Just didn't work out. But that allowed me to buy Studio One with the divorce settlement, and also gave me equal child sharing time, which I think is where for a lot of women it's just so tough finding the time. I wouldn't recommend that you just get divorced to do your career, but it can have its pluses. So this is Studio One that was paid for apparently by my first husband. There is another one now, and I'm keeping that one. But anyway, so this is when it came to it. So as I say, if I go right back to the beginning, I went to college in Leicester, Leicester Polytechnic. I'm one of three sisters, as if it's a sort of announcement, but I don't know. I am one of three sisters. My elder sister went to the Slade, did fine art. My younger sister went to the Royal College. So I was rather sort of down at the heel going to Leicester Polytechnic. You know, it was a sort of, oh, she'll just go there. But I'm the one who sort of stuck at it, really. The other two are still very creative. But I think Leicester did me a favour because it brought me to the Midlands, which is where I still am. I really enjoyed being at Leicester. I still love Leicester. And I also meant that, like this wonderful print studio you've got here, I'm a founding member of Leicester Print Workshop. So when I first left college in the 80s, it was like this place here. It was somewhere where you could go and be creative. I actually, at the time, didn't really think I would make a living out of doing that. It was sort of, I was making prints and exhibiting a little bit, always sold my work, but as a 20-something, I was more interested in travelling and exploring. And I think some of the work I do now is actually rooted. Sorry, I should be a bit more up here, shouldn't I? Some of the work that I do now is rooted in what I did all those years ago, because I think I gave myself, as a young person, the time to explore. So, for example, leaping ahead a bit here, when I started doing book cover work, shut your ears, publishing people, because when the art director sends you a brief, they send you, when I first started, a very long wish list of what they want to see, you know, and what they hope for. And usually what I do is put it in the bin. and then I go and think, oh, if I know the writer. So this one, for example. An image you probably recognise. Sadly, flat fee, not royalty. This is Rainer Wynne's Salt Path, which is sold in its millions. But this was the initial sort of idea that I had. And it's based actually of my walks on the Salt Path myself. Many years ago, I would take my bike down to Penzance and spend weeks sort of walking. And so I drew upon that experience of actually doing that rather than the wish list of the art director. So, and obviously it goes through various meetings and do pay attention after a while. And you come up collaboratively with an image that's going to help sell the book. In fact, we did that most recently with Wilding, didn't we? That I had a fixed idea of what I thought should be on the cover of Wilding. Through dialogue and marketing team, they didn't feel that, and they came up with something. And I went, oh my God, no. So then we came up with something else. So sometimes it is that dialogue to and fro between the art director, the designer, and the illustrator. Anyway, I digress. Let's move on. So this is my studio back in Thunderbirds 1. This is my studio, and these are my constant companions. Sadly, these three are no longer with us. This is Amy, Sid, and Slim. And I've always had rescue dogs, so they come at various ages, and so they don't last as long as others. We've now got Oti, who have had just a year and a half. So, but that's rather sad. But this is my press, where I do all my printing. I don't really need a big space of many years. Just a small space to draw and chisel. And you can see my press is not that big. This is my newest Thunderbird, which is very grand. So actually, as you see from everything I do now, I actually employ people now. So I've got 6 people that work for me, and various other ones that help in other places. So we sort of outgrew working in home, both upstairs and downstairs. So this is very recent. We've moved into here. So the upstairs is where we have an internet shop. So we do all the packing and everything there. And the downstairs is a meeting room, a showroom, but it's all very new. So back to the press and my process. So, I mean, it literally is just sitting with a chisel. That's it, really, but for a very long time. I use two materials. Do you want to pass them round? This is a grey lino, and the other material I use is a Japanese vinyl. So, and I use mainly just 2 tools. You can see it's just a V, a sharp V. When we go back to when I was at college at Leicester Poly, I actually did etching. And I think you can see in my work it's very much driven by line. So the work is done on the block by doing what you call a key block. So I find that's the way I find my images, is that I just draw directly onto the block. Obviously, if I'm working to a cover brief, I'll think about where the text has got to go. But it is driven by the image, really. So I do the black and white first, and then you'll see this is them actually putting the colour with the black and white. This I did for the National Portrait Gallery, and you can see it's backwards on purpose, because obviously, if you're not printmakers, you're working in negative in reverse, you're working in a mirror. But it didn't matter for this, because it was going to get used digitally, so I didn't have to think about reversing it. So back to our sort of lifestyle. There's my scruffy husband. Husband 2. This is husband 2, the one I'm keeping. And you can see this is we use our boat also as my studio. So this is studio whatever we're up to there. But this is virtually just a plank of wood. And this is our sort of old age hippie lifestyle, really. We spend part of the year on the boat and part of the year at home. And because I work for myself and I have people working for me now, we sort of work between the two. So you can see in the corner here, this is working out one of the cover things. So this boat we keep in Suffolk. Where I live is in the Midlands, about as far away from the sea as you can go. She's a little sailing boat. And then we take her all around the coast. My husband will spend up to 6 months on her of the year, and I come and go. So that's how we live. we don't need much. So that's the kitchen, and that's the bedroom, and that's also the office. And this reflects sort of what I did this year, which is I've had the most marvellous experience, and that's what I would say, that I'm very lucky in my lifestyle and what I do now. I get to live on a boat part of the year and travel. And this summer I spent a month on Fair Isle. So this is specifically for artists. It's for writers as well as visual people and knitters. And this is Fair Isle. It's only 3 miles long by 1 mile wide. It's a tiny, tiny island. But I found it so inspiring. I'm just we talked earlier about my own books. My first one, A Year Unfolding, was followed by Wild Light. And part of this experience of going to Fair Isle is about my new book, which is called Still Waters and Wild Waves, and it's all about the sea and about the journey. So this is a very big part of what I've been doing up there. Yeah, this shows you the detailed sketch I send to the publishers. But this is what I was showing you about technique. So you can see here on the left, I'll pass it round. This is what you call the key block. So that's the print from the key block. So I'll do the black and white first, and then I'm tracing off where I want the colour. So I'm using like some newsprint prints that I've taken off that block, and then I cut stencils, paper cut stencils. It's all quite crudely done, really. And then I print the colour, and then I bring the two back together again. So the colour, I can show you. I put some ready to hand out. I can't find them. Oh, they're over here. Sorry, excuse me a minute. Because the colour is done with water-based, I'm going to pass it round. You get a very, very flat look to it. Well, there's a PD James on the other side of that. So yeah, you can see the difference between the inked colour and the watercolour. I've got some more here. I've got another one. Yeah, there you go. So the prints that I do for illustration are quite roughly done, as compared to when I do editions to sell. So these are. So there, the one I've just given you, that's the one with the block. You can see the two. But that one's got watercolour on it. Often, if any of you are illustrators, I'm sure you'll know you get pressed for time. So if I'm doing an illustration job, I might get the block, and actually add watercolour. And then this is a proper edition print. You can see the edition print. I'm going to pass it round. It's quite different. There you go. So again, this is this one. Yeah, you can see that's the third one I did, which ended up as that one. Oh, this is the first one I did for Little Brown Books. You can see I was trying hard here, Sean. So, yeah, this is like when you get a new publisher to work with, that's sort of what you do for them. And when you've been working with them a while, that's what they get. So it's always very exciting when you do get a new connection to a publisher, because I think that's the other thing that I should say about my job, is I love working with people. A lot of it is solitary. Obviously, we're on the boat or you're in the studio for hours. But the thing I love about the publishing world is the collaboration and also the great skills that people have that they bring to your own artwork. I was going to pass this round as an example. Because Sean, who's here, who I've done a lot of work with, he came up with the idea of doing one of my, this is like a triptych I did as the inside of a cover. Pass that round. But then another person, Laura, who worked with a card company, took part of that image and created that. So, you know, it's actually the computer people add a lot more than I do sometimes. That they usually come out of a dialogue of like, so yeah, this is like a series of 3D cards. Can pass round. So that's you know, the other aspect of what I do is producing cards as well as the books. There's a lovely company that do these cards called Art Angels, who've been very supportive, particularly to printmakers. And I suggested doing these advent calendars, which have become rather a mainstay of my business. People really enjoy the advent calendars. And when I first did the first one, I hadn't got a commission for it or anything. I was just doing it because I love advent calendars, really. And my husband, I always tell this story, sorry, Sean. My husband said, "What are you wasting all that time doing that for? Nobody will want those." I think we sold like 50,000 now. Yes. So sometimes you have to go with your heart, what you feel. So this is I'll go back to this. This is Val McDermott, and it wanted a Scottish feel, wasn't it? It was just like Scottish blue, and I wanted to bring the thistle into it. But the thing about the blocks is, pass this one round. As you see, there's many hours of work in them. So when I do one, it may be used as a book cover, but then I'll take that same image, always retain the copyright. I'll trim that in. So this then became one of my advent calendars, the base behind it, or one of the pages in Wilding I use for this year's advent calendar. And the block I've just sent round was this book cover, and that became part of the base for the owl one. It had this slotted on. I was going to say the other thing that I really enjoy about working with, as I was saying, with creative people within the print industry, is like they'll take just a little bit of something I do and make a lovely end paper. This is one of the series that I've done with Faber and Faber. The first one I did was one of the nature book series. So I was one of 5 illustrators who were commissioned to do a cover illustration based on the colours used in a 1950s John Piper print. So it was quite specific, the colours you had to use and actually where the colour had to land. But because I did well with that one, it then led on to me doing all the P.D. James ones. And most recently, if you want to put, this is out in March. This is for Poet Laureate Simon Armitage, and it was a example of how people trust me as an illustrator now after all this time, because, as I say, in the beginning, you would get a long list of what they wanted, and they'd want to see a lot of pre-sketches before they committed, obviously, to what they were getting. Whereas with this project, Simon sent the poetry before anybody had seen it, and I just sort of lived with it in the studio. So the images are just a response to the words. So you can't get a sort of nicer brief as a maker than that. So this is another sort of printing. This is actually my book, Wild Light, being printed in Italy. And alongside enjoying craft printing, I love going to commercial printers as well. And I felt very honoured that I was allowed to go and see my book being printed. The skill of these people is just phenomenal when you see it coming off the press. My work can be quite tricky to print because it is, you think it'd be easy because it's prints, but because it's a very strong black, we can have a lot of trouble with it, like filling in. And also because, like with the letterpress you do here, it's a broken black. And then a commercial printer will go, oh, look, that's all broken. We better make it really solid. And so you have to keep saying, no, that's fine. That's how we want it. And after you've worked with a printer for a while, they'll know that you want that slightly broken look to it, not overfilled, over-concentrated. So this is, that was in Trento in Italy. These lovely guys did a fantastic job with the colour and the black. And this is also fascinating, seeing the books. For me, I love multiples of things. I was originally born in Stoke-on-Trent, and I think it goes back to the pottery industry of seeing lines of pots. So seeing all the books lined up is something that I really enjoy. So this is at Hachette's warehouse. So yeah, this is some of the work I've done for the Simon Armitage book. And it's still the same thing as I was talking about earlier, in that it's a direct response to personal experience. So it might be talking about spring and blossom, but the words evoke me watching a sparrowhawk killing a blackbird in the garden near a little pond. And this is one of the most recent ones I've done from my trip up to Scotland. So I've always wanted to see an otter, and they're quite difficult to see. And when I was through the wonderful Instagram, somebody contacted me and said, "Would you like to meet a special otter?" I said, "Oh, I'd love to meet a special otter." And this is Molly, who's wild, and she's on Shetland. I'm not allowed to tell you where she is because she was found dying by a chap on Shetland who's not a conservationist, but he nursed her back to health. And she still lives wild in the loch, but she comes to see him most days, not every day, but most days. So I was invited to go and meet Molly, and I did quite a bit of work about this experience of seeing an otter that comes right up to your feet and then back out into the water again. These are sort of, I'll talk a bit more about collaboration. This is the Blossom project that I was just talking about with Simon Armitage. I think it's the first time I've been on vinyl. So he's got a band, a sort of middle-aged, whatever they do, I don't know it. I don't know, music-y thing. But it was I felt very honoured that he wanted to use my image I'd done for his cover. So wilding, talk a bit more about wilding and the work that I did there. As I've discussed earlier, a sort of emotional response to being in a place. And I was lucky with this project to actually go and stay in the bothy. I went 3 times over 3 different times of year. And if any of you know anything about wilding, the jay is like a very integral part into how wilding works, because at Knepp they actually allow the oak trees, if they die, they crumble and they decay, or there's a natural wild brambling growth. And the jays use this to hide the oak trees where the thistles are and the brambles. So there's this sort of cycle of their new oak trees coming through that. And when I first arrived, I think it was April, I think it was, or March when I first got there, you just had masses of jays. It sort of struck me that there was lots and lots of jays. So it seemed natural that my first response was to do this jay print. And scale of artwork is an interesting thing, because you don't have to work at this scale. I don't know why the hell I do sometimes, but I think it's when I'm sort of impressed by something. Because I take a big roll of lino, and then I'll cut it down to usually smaller sizes. But I think because I was so impacted by the feeling of being at Knepp, it felt like it needed to be bigger work. So that's why within the book there is a crossover between instructional and educational illustration about the creatures and the insects. But then there's other pieces that are very much a response from the heart. This particular one about the red deer, if you've been to Knepp, you'll know it's a huge area, and it's divided into 2 main big areas. And I took my little bike so I could pedal round. You're not supposed to, you're supposed to walk, but never get anywhere otherwise. Anyway, I'd gone out all day looking for the red deer, because they're still quite hard to spot, the things. They're still quite hard to spot. Couldn't find the red deer. And went back to me, very lovely, called a bothy, but bigger than my house, in the wood. It was right in the middle of the wood. I was having a cup of tea, and after spending all day looking for the red deer, this group of red deer walked past my back door and stopped. And they're just fucking enormous, you know. And they like put their heads back, and they were like eating. And they're almost quite, you know, it's quite intimidating that they're so big. So that's where that sort of image came from that sort of feeling of power that they do have. And when you're confronted with those creatures, you slightly want to hide, actually, after looking for them all the time. Yeah, so that's the J's and the pier. And again, yeah, this is my sort of version of the bothy where I was staying. And there was, I'd say, went 3 times over the year. So you could see the same trees change. And there's a lovely pond outside. And I like getting up quite early. So in the morning, I would get up and you would often see this fox on patrol that was obviously looking for the ducklings or the nesting ducks, whatever. And then out of one of these trees, it's not illustrated here, I could see a duck's tail sticking out about 30 foot up the tree. And I thought, that's a bloody wise duck, isn't it? And this duck had decided to nest in a hole at the top of this tree. I've never seen a duck do that before, but you slightly wonder how the ducklings were going to get down. But it was definitely safe from the fox. And again, this is this one here. This was my favourite oak tree. So welcome to pass it round. So yeah, you can't help but be impressed by the beauty and the number of trees. And again, the fact that that's the oak tree one. So like I was saying, these are some of the creatures that live in the oak tree, and this is quite different for me for this project, to actually do some watercolours, which I really enjoyed as well. So these are more what you might call educational watercolours. And it's given the book, actually, if you get a chance to look through the book, I think it gives it almost like, reminds me of a book from my childhood, where they had that mixture of emotion and education. And this one too, this is a sort of imagined scene at, imagined scene at NEP. And I've actually used a bit of monoprinting on that as well. I was just going to say that the good thing about linocuts is they can go at any scale as well. So that's a big linocut that can reduce right down to a smaller scale. There you go, there's a cover one. I have to say, another sort of amazing moment at NEP was, I think I'd been there a couple of days, and I'd heard there was like storks, and where are these storks? And I've again been out on my bike, and I was just walking towards where the lake is, and this enormous shadow came over me, and it was like being in Avatar, as I imagined, this enormous creature. This is a sort of print that I did, sort of inspired by them. Beavers as well. Yeah, that's the jays. And all the. Oh, there we go. Has anybody got any questions they'd like to ask? Okay, yeah.
So thank you, Angela. I'm just loving the buzz in the room of everyone being able to look at your artwork up close and personal. So thank you for being so generous and sharing your work in that way. It's really special just for you to be happy to do that. Yeah. There's lots of love for you online as well. So there's lots of different questions about your process.
Yeah.
So someone's asked about how do you translate a drawing to the lino?
I don't. What I do is I just draw straight onto the lino. So I use chalk. Mm-hmm. So I will, if it's for me, these sort of drawings, they'll often change a lot. I'll keep drawing in chalk. If they're for a cover, then I would square up a drawing. I do not a detailed drawing, but I'd work out where the text has got to be.
Yeah.
So that would be as near as it would get, but less and less these days, to be honest.
Yeah, and someone's asked, how do you decide which type of the two linos you use to print on for what project? Is there a logic or?
Lino for big, vinyl for small.
Easy one. And someone's asked, do you work digitally at all?
No.
Not at all, no.
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 I think, and Sean will know this as well, when people first approach me, I go, I have no digital skills whatsoever, and when I finish the print, I'll post it to you, and that's it.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I
And
don't mind people changing things.
I will get to questions in the room as well. I'm just going through, there's quite a lot online. I'd like to get through those just first. And lots of people have asked about how do you draw from photographs? Do you draw from nature? Do you have a sketchbook?
Yes, unfashionably, I always use a sketchbook, but the actual prints are drawn directly. So I just work straight on the prints, but I do keep a sketchbook, which is more of a diary sketchbook.
Yeah. Brilliant. Who has a question in the room? I'll have to bring the microphone round so the online people can hear you. I'll make sure we get to everyone.
Thank you. Are there any particular illustrators or artists whose work that you enjoy, and could you tell us why that is, please?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very influenced by the Revilius Borden school of illustrators and painters from that particular era, and I think it is their craftsman womanship, you know, the beauty of the work. I'm very much an illustrator, not a fine artist. I see myself in that, you know, workaday working illustrator. But I'm always inspired by the craft of those people. There was a Revilius exhibition a few years back at the Dulwich Picture Gallery, and I was as inspired by his watercolours and print. I don't know if there was any prints, can't remember, but it had a case with his tools in, and it's just fascinating to see his tools. So it's the craftsman womanship that inspires me. But not just visual, often writing and music and various things. When I'm doing work that's just for me, or you're evoking some sort of emotion, I'll often put music on to work to.
Okay, I think we've got this microphone working now, which is brilliant. So you'll be able to hear better from the back.
Hello. Hi. Do you have a favourite piece of work of your own? And
no, it's always rubbish. It's always the next one will be better.
Okay. But do you have that question aside then, is there a particular piece of print work that really inspires you to kind of keep going?
Well, it was always the next thing. And I think I sent round the cover from A Year Unfolding that had got a triptych in it. I like working in for some reason, in threes. Sadly, this is only part of it. There is another part. This is the first one I did, which was about the Suffolk coast. I think it's in A Year Unfolding, the three. And I've just done two in my new book, not promotion, Stillwater Wild Waves. I've actually done two big key pieces that are about the South Lighthouse and the North Lighthouse. So I quite like the idea of a sense of place coming through in the work. And I'm actually going back to Fair Isle, not this year, next year, for 7 weeks. And I'm already thinking about, I want to do like two triptychs about the South and the North. And I don't know what it is about working in threes, but I find that inspiring. Thank you.
I think we had a question over here.
Yes, please. I absolutely love your work.
Thank you.
And it inspired me to start lino printing.
Oh, good, yeah.
But it's very difficult, and I can't believe how easy you make it look. So how long does it take you to make something like this?
It depends when the deadline is looming. But you can speed up. But no, I've been trouble. Yeah, a big piece takes. I always, when I'm commissioned for a book cover, I ideally like about 6 weeks from start to finish. But the triptych I was talking about, I worked on for a year. So I put it down and then pick it up, you know. So it would be like coming and going. In fact, it took longer than that because that was just to do the black and white, and then probably another year to get all the colour completed. So that's my own personal work, though. So it has to fit around everything else, yeah.
The thing I find hardest, apart from making smudges all the time, the thing I find hardest, apart from making smudges, is working in the negative. How long did it take you to train your brain?
Well, I think, fortunately, I've been born with a backwards head. No, literally, I'm happier in negative and mirror. And I think I do view the world in a printmaker's view, literally. And I find as I get older that my memory does it all the time with, if I'm less familiar with a place, they did it the other day, I'm going back and going, where's that, they can't have knocked that building down. Oh no, it's over there. You know, it's sort of like my memory reverses things all the time. So I'm ambidextrous as well, and I can write backwards as well as I can forwards. So I think I found the right genre for my funny head.
Thank you.
A mirror, you can just use a mirror.
I think someone raised a hand over in this area on the left. Yes, there you go.
Many artists start off with a very naturalistic view of the world and then become more abstract as their art develops. Have you got any sense of how you're evolving as an artist?
There's only so long left, I think. Well, no, I mean, I think it's taken me, I've been working as a printmaker since the 1980s, so how long is that, 45 years or something. So, but I came to this using relief, I used to be intaglio etching, only for the last 15, 18 years. And I think I just find my voice in it. I think I like the strong graphic. And I suppose we're all given confidence when things go out into the world and you get a response. And I've been lucky to have worked long enough to have got that. Doesn't happen to all makers. And I think that's a mixture of just luck, that the publishing world seemed to want craft. When it went sort of digital, then it turned craft. And that there's probably a sense of nostalgia in what I do. I think there is, and romance to a certain extent. But it is an honest response to what I see and what I feel. So people seem to respond to that. I don't think it'll change now. It just will be different subject matter in different places. I don't feel comfortable in what I do. I think I've still got a lot to explore and get better at.
Great. We've got a couple more questions online and then we'll come back to the room. I feel like we could chat to you all night, Angela, but I know you have a limited time. We've got a really good question here from Nadine. If you make a mistake when cutting the lino, can you correct it, or do you have to start again, or do you make it into something else?
He wasn't originally going to tip his head. I think that answers that.
Excellent answer. Do you still get, this is a question from Stella, do you still get that thrill when you pull your first test print and see it for the first time?
Yes, always. I always say it's that every printmaking's like Christmas.
We've got a question from Sarah here. What would you say to aspiring young neurodivergent creatives navigating art education?
Yeah, that's a brilliant question. I would say have faith and hope. I know it's tricky. I know I can be glib from this position, but I was talking to some people earlier saying, my days coming to London, I've never lived in London, but coming to London, I still feel it now, that sense of walking the streets with a portfolio, leaving it and coming back with the rejection. And that part of being successful is learning to take those knocks and have confidence that you will, and listen to, if people come and said, no, we can't take this because of blah, blah, blah. Listen, if you want to work collaboratively, it's a mixture of having faith in what you want to do, your own voice, but also listening to the people you work with.
Absolutely. Some people online have asked if we can show them some of the prints that are being shown around. So I'll hold those up while we still have some questions. Any more questions in the room? Yes, I'll come to the lady at the back and then gentleman here. Yeah.
Thank you. Hello.
Hi.
Your style is so iconic. Has it always been like that since you were at university, or have you developed this style? Because when I look at everything you do, I just go, that's you. But has it always been like that?
No, I think when I was etching, I should have bought some to show you. I think it would be less recognisable. It was the same subject matter, but I was more, when I was doing the intaglio work, I was more exhibiting, and it was more, it was bleaker, to be honest. The work was very dark etchings. But then when I reinvented myself post-internet, post-divorce, I needed a technique that I could work quite quickly at home, even though I was part of a print workshop. Lino cutting and relief work's fantastic because all you need is a chisel and a block. And I didn't have a press then. I just printed everything with a wooden spoon. So for the route I took into illustration was first to get some editorial work for Gardens Illustrated. So I did an illustration a month for them, and then I got work for various other magazines, and that led on, but it was a good training ground, the editorial work, for working quickly, but also developing my style, I think.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
I think you've answered. I was going to ask whether your subject matter has always been nature, but I think you kind of answered it then.
No, well, that's a good question because, my life's taken me to live in various places, really, but it has always been at the root of what I do. And when I was at Leicester, living in the city, well, I wasn't because I didn't like living in the city, so I actually moved out and used to cycle in. So, yeah, I'm sort of happy. I do love working with people, but I'm happiest on my own, away from people, really. So Fair Isle, for example, was just me and a few thousand. Well, there is actually 40 people live there. That's about right.
Anyone else in the room with a question? Oh, one behind me. Perfect.
Hi.
Hi, my family's from Lincolnshire and I've spent many summer holidays cycling around Rutland Water, and it's such a beautiful place, and your work is so rooted in sort of British countryside. Have you ever thought about going somewhere sort of completely, like on safari or something, and
Like
doing work
abroad?
from sort of another landscape or?
Yeah, well, I think part of that, I talked about the formative years of travelling. For part of that, I did VSO in Bangladesh and travelled in India and also did anybody's old enough to remember the magic bus? I did the magic bus and all that sort of thing. But I think that was more experience of people, actually, more than stuff for the artwork. And I think the experience I've just had staying on Fair Isle in Shetland, I just love that sort of landscape so much. I think, and 5 years ago, we went to Costa Rica before the lockdowns and everything, and it's fantastic for the birds and fantastic landscape. But I didn't feel inspired to do anything. I didn't feel inspired to draw in the way I do, like continually from what I see. I don't know. Maybe I'm too old and set in my ways, but it is that British landscape that I love, really.
We've got a few more questions online. We will stop at some point, I promise, Angela. Give you a few more minutes and then we'll give you a break.
What I was going to say to people just before is that I can't give you the prints, one or two perhaps, but I'm about to fly away to the Scilly Isles. I've had to change my travel plans, and I've got a bad back. So if anybody wants like the advent calendars or a tea towel, when you come up at the end, because you'll be lightening my load. I can't give you the proper prints, but I can give you some things. So, yeah, just before you go, take something away with you.
I think you'll be mobbed, Angela. Someone has asked, have you ever had time to try your jigsaw puzzles? They're really difficult.
Only once, yes. And I think it's a fitting time, if any of you of my age with older children. My daughter, who's now in her 30s, was having a baby and was in labour for 2 days. So I did one then.
We've got Michaela, who's asked, do you have any advice for getting work experience in a studio?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Open access print studios are always fantastic places to go and help. My sort of studio isn't. It's too small, even with the bigger one that is now. But I would recommend wherever the lady lives to find out where the local open access is. One, they're always looking for volunteers, like they are here, I'm sure.
Absolutely. And we've got a question from Julia, who's doing design for publishing at Norwich University. And she wonders what are the beginning steps are for book cover designs that you work on. Do you have any tips for generating ideas on how to communicate a whole book visually in one cover? That's a tricky one. I don't know if there's a secret to that.
A whole book in one cover. Well, that's what a book cover is, isn't it?
Yeah.
You answer that one, Sean. Go on, we've got a very good cover designer here. How would you answer that, Sean?
I'm not quite sure, really.
Isn't that what you do when you commission a book cover, though? You want people to know that it's. Well, you answer that, not me.
So what was the question?
How do you encapsulate the themes of the whole book in one cover?
Well, yeah, it's quite difficult. I mean, we talked about collaboration, didn't we? So we to and fro. I mean, today when you came in, we looked at typefaces. We went away. I said you can go away and think about that. We look at the layout. We look at the back. Yeah. We look at everything, don't we? Really,
it's probably a lot of subtleties, and people who don't work in book covers don't realise, that you don't just pick any font and go, that's it. Even the font has to feel right for the book.
Yeah, the thing's it's got to work, hasn't it? It's got to work with your work, yeah. And that's why we looked at serif typefaces today that were a little bit sharper, that work with how you work and how you cut the lino. Then there's other things, that we have to fit the copy on, so beautiful as your work is, there's, we have to get...
It has to be rubbed out.
We have to get things on there. We have to get an ISBN on there. We have to get the cost on there.
Yeah.
There's barcodes. Everything has to go on there. Your author biography goes on there. So, we have to take that all into consideration, don't we, when we
do.
work. So that's why collaboration and working together is vitally important. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for the impromptu help. I'll just see if there's one more question online, then we'll come back to the room. Thank you for bearing with me while I navigate this. So what are your plans for the future, Angela?
I have been working very hard, as you can see I now work not only with book publishers, but museums and galleries, like doing kitchenware and gift bags, and Art Angels do the advent calendars. So I am working with a number of companies. So I do have people who help me now, but my plans are for them to do more of that, and for me to spend more time on the boat with a sketchbook.
That sounds absolutely heavenly and well deserved, as I know how hard you've been working on all your projects. We've got time for one more question in the room. Does anyone have any? Good. We come to a natural close. I'd just is there a place in the UK you haven't visited that you would love to illustrate, or you feel drawn to, that you would love to go and haven't been to?
There's so many places that I love that I feel I would need to visit more. So, like the fact I am going back to Shetland. I haven't done I haven't done much of the Western Isles. So that's a treat waiting to happen. And when I was staying on Shetland this summer, lovely house, and the owner of the house I stayed in was the granddaughter of Peggy Angus. People know who Peggy Angus is?
Yes.
And Peggy Angus didn't buy a house till she was my sort of age, and she bought a house on Barra. Do you know where Barra is? It's where there's a little plain. And this house is still as Peggy Angus left it, with no electricity or running water. There's a well. So she's invited me to go and stay there. So maybe a bit too basic for me. But yeah.
Sounds incredible. We had a talk by James Russell. He did a book about Peggy Angus quite a few years ago, and her work is incredible, and I implore you all to go and look it up. It's fabulous. I'd just like to say a huge thank you to everyone for coming this evening, for joining us online and in person. I have to say a huge thank you to Andrew, who's doing our filming at the back so brilliantly, to all the fantastic staff at St. Bride, David, the new bookshop seller. Please do go and buy a book. All the brilliant team at Macmillan for helping tonight work. And finally, a huge, huge thank you to Angela for delivering such a brilliant talk this evening.